Hi, welcome to an episode of Family DynamiKs. It's Liz.
It's Katherine.
I'm Ed.
And John.
So all four of us together.
Woohoo!
With no guests this time, just us.
Not today.
No, just the OG four.
The OGs, correct.
So one of the things I want to talk about is, our inherited lateness.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. Of course.
So I just went away on...
We're all fighting it constantly.
Weirdly, none of us wear watches.
I actually do, but it's a little more of a fashion statement,
Right.
and I keep it on time. I like to look at a real watch versus my cell phone. What, John?
So wait a minute. So your watch is the appropriate time.
Almost every watch I own is set 5 minutes early, even though I know it's set 5 minutes early, so it has really no impact. But
Wait, 5 minutes early? Because isn't the car clock sent 10 minutes late?
no, not late. No, it's 5 to 10 minutes ahead. Always, all my clocks around me.
I totally believe you. Go ahead.
Why would I put a clock 10 minutes late if I'm already running late? It'll cause me more anxiety. No, don't shrug your shoulders like
Well, that's the dash clock. He's talking about the radio.
There's only one clock in my car. And I always set it about 10 minutes early. So, dropping my son off at school, if it's saying 8:03, it's really, 7:50.
I mean, does this work? I set all my clocks to the actual time. I actually hate walking through the house if all the clocks don't match. Not in like a too much of an OCD type of way. Like, I can't stand my clock and Eric's clock. We have like literally old school alarm clocks on
The digital?
Yeah, digital, not the like round with the ringing bell on the top, not that old school, but like digital clocks, and they have to match. I can't come in.
Do you use that as the alarm to wake up?
I do, yeah.
I use my phone now.
Yeah,
Which I've had one or two accidents by mistake, PM versus AM, or God just didn't hit the little slide over like on the little green button.
I use my phone, but I did recently resuscitate my old digital alarm clock, partially just for a clock to look at night. So that it's, because as opposed to a phone, you got to click on it. It's like, no, I want to just be able to look at it.
And it's too easy to fall down the trap if you look at your phone for time at night, which they say, your eyes being bad. Like, oh, and my hand slid over to Twitter or Instagram.
In the middle of the night? Are you
Yes.
insane?
I love
there's a
having
notification
clock,
under
yeah.
this timestamp. What is that?
Yep, exactly.
We have a giant round, what do you call that? Like not digital, just
Analog?
analog. There you go. The round kind in our house. It's more of a decor element, but I can see it when I'm sitting on the couch. So I'm like watching the TV. I can dart over, see the time. I know what's going on. Sarah just recently said, I have no idea how to tell time on that clock. No idea. She's
What
like,
do you mean? What?
She actually said, I sometimes forget that's why you're looking over there, because you can actually tell what time it is on that clock.
I mean, she just wasn't taught it?
Yes, or forgot it, or it just doesn't, it didn't
It's
stick.
not relevant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's shocking.
I don't know that was also months ago, liar. But I don't know if I can see that, because what I have to pop up, do it okay, I'm relaxing on the couch at Catherine's house. I'm gonna pop my head up to see the oven clock. That's
The
how
oven clock is helpful, but it depending on where you're sitting, you can't, there's this pillar thing that might be in the way, or God forbid I'm baking something, because then it's just going to say 400, which is not helpful, or 350. It's like, well,
Right.
that's
What time
not-
is it? 400. Oh.
I really do use
400
that
for
round.
hours.
I really use that round clock a lot.
As I'm there many hours, I mean, possibly more than 2 a week, let me tell you how to deal with your own house. Yeah, no, I'm just saying at night when we're watching TV, it happens to work out for me that way.
Gotcha.
I have a couple digital clocks in my room, some of which occasionally get boffed and turned away, and then it'll be 2 weeks. I'm like, dang it, I can't tell what time it is. It's the middle of the night, and usually one eye, I can kind of scope out that clock over there.
Something's
but it's
facing
facing
you.
the wrong way.
Yeah.
And then I wake up in the morning and do not adjust it because I was thinking of that in the middle of the night.
So, Liz, do you think
And
it
then ran
helps
late.
to put clocks forward? Not really.
I
Because then you
mean-
just have to do math. What are you doing?
Maybe I'm constantly challenging myself with doing arithmetic, doing...
Arithmancy? Or have we gone back to Harry Potter?
Just
Yes.
arithmetic, do you mean?
Arithmetic.
Just
Yes.
math?
But, I mean, Mark has the bedroom digital clock next to our bed. He also gets up very early. His alarm never wakes me up. Our son Ethan has an alarm in his room, and he never gets up with it for school, ever. It always requires me to go in there and get him. And there's always some Balone Schmalone excuse.
Balone Schmalone.
Yeah, it's like, okay. And for quite a while recently, it was like, I don't know what's wrong, because Summer, he's sleeping in. I said, well, just set your alarm for 10 a.m. and if you're not up yet, that will start to get you up. And for days, I'd go in there around 10:15, 10:30, go, what happened? It's set for 10 o'clock at night, which I've never heard it go off at 10 o'clock at night. And I go, well, just change it to a.m. And I still don't know what's happening. But almost going back, I feel like it's in our DNA, not on our father's side so much.
No. It's mom.
And mom. It's a maternal curse. And, drove our father crazy growing up. But I think he just resigned himself at one point with 8 kids. And just, what are you going to do?
Well, there was always a lot of yelling of like, Mary, come on, it's time to go. And it did spill over to like, kids, if you're not in the car, I'm leaving without you.
Oh,
and then eventually, you are all on bikes. Figure it out yourselves.
Good luck.
Well, yes, for school, when mom started to go back to school herself and teaching, we then started to ride bikes and get ourselves to school pretty much on our own. Now,
Not necessarily on time.
Where was Dad? Why wasn't he driving us?
Maybe he was working. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well, yeah, because he always just had so many unique jobs. But there were times he was a school teacher that then he would need to be there.
Well, for sure. I mean, he drove me to school my entire sophomore year in the morning.
In the great car.
And
Which car was that?
I want to say... God, Mrs. Steele across the street. I think we got that some old Chevrolet from her that had been sitting in her garage.
Wasn't it white,
okay,
too?
so there was a blue Impala, like a 70s or 80s, like big giant living room type of car.
On wheels.
Yeah.
Two
And
bench seats, just 2 big bench seats.
so that one, for a while, something went wrong with it, because all of these cars were never in great shape to begin with. And then he borrowed or bought the car from the woman across the street, which was also like that type of car, like a big Chevy something or other. But it was also like this dusty white and had been in the garage forever and looked all decrepit.
And she had little dolls like in the back window, and I think even an Afghan that might have been covering up.
I mean,
cracked,
yeah. Well,
the back window was just a huge sort of, what would you call that?
like a little shelf.
The shelf where she had dolls, I think began to crack, and so she had an Afghan. And Dad didn't even take those out originally.
Oh, God. I mean, I do think he was not driving kids to school because he was working. So part of it, at least, that makes sense, like the younger kids. But
that was definitely up there as one of the more mortifying cars. Like, wow. Didn't you have a story?
I do remember, oh my God, from St. Mel, our elementary school, I was one of the few kids who then went to this one high school.
Right.
And I remember he was driving me to school. We were both going there because I was at the school that he was at. And we're on the street, and I look up, and I recognize a girl from St. Mel.
Oh.
And she was kind of a popular girl.
And you hadn't seen her
I
in years.
Oh, yeah. And I wave, total eye contact, and then I realize, oh my God, we're in this crazy old car. Well, I mean, what are you going to do? I was like, oh.
You're like, I should have ducked down versus like, hey.
Absolutely.
Oh, God.
I mean.
And she acknowledged you?
Oh, yeah, we made full eye contact. I was like,
crap.
oh, no, she absolutely recognized me. And I full on waved. I'm like,
But
oh.
if you were a sophomore or junior in high school and you got to be driving that car, entirely different vibe.
Well, that would be different, yeah. I mean, if
that one, no, I disagree with you. That one was just awful all around. Just was really. We'll have to get into whole family car history because there are some amazing stories. But so, Dad, being a teacher those few years, he probably would have left before we needed to go to school. So, as kids, we were left to our own devices to ride bikes, and I was the leader of the bike gang for sure.
The bike gang.
There was the 4. Because at one time, there are 4 of us at St. Mel's together. I might have been 7th and 8th grade. So Rosemary, Virginia, and Eddie all were at St. Mel's at the same time.
that lines up with Dad working at Chaminade and having to be there.
Right.
I mean, that does make sense.
So we would take off on our bikes, in various states of repair. And we were supposed to cross at the light, but I, left a window of maybe 12 minutes to get to school, which was about
It's about 2 miles.
2 miles.
You're going to slow down in a couple crossways, but you should be able to get there in 12 minutes.
No. Remember, I had figured out, okay, so you got your book bag and you get on your bike and forget going all the way down to the light. We'd cross Topanga Canyon, so busy. And like, we're the various ages. It's so dangerous. Then we take these back streets, and there was something called the Aku Lounge.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
No. It was the Aku Motor Inn.
oh, even more prestigious.
Cut. Yeah. Mhm.
Now, it said don't cut through, but fuck that.
What are they going to do? Chase after you? Come on.
I mean, it saved like half a block, but a light as well. So by crossing over Topanga Canyon, doing the back streets, cutting through the Aku Motor Inn parking lot, you have not hit a light yet.
go for it.
And now we're just on side streets, and it's like balls to the wall until you know what? We're doing pretty good. Let's stop at Winchell's for
Oh, God.
donuts.
Well, wait. Okay.
Why be on time for school?
Yeah,
Let's get donut holes.
I think there's two.
The one person out of the four of us that could not handle being late and drove her insane was Virginia.
I mean, she's still the most punctual out of all of us, for
Yeah.
sure. Even though most of us have evolved out of it and purposefully tried to fight it and have better punctuality, she was always a punctual person.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say there are two factors, I think, and maybe there's more, that feed into this. One is, we've talked about it a little bit before, the pylon, where you think you can do more things or you have too many things.
That is totally
or
our
you're-
mother.
Yeah. And just like packing the day until you have just enough time to get there. And then it turns out you needed more than you thought,
Right.
or whatever you were trying to do took longer than you thought. That seems like number one, very typical. Number two, I think, is sleep related. I feel like the fact that a lot of us are night owls and will stay up way too late and then are craving sleep and have such a hard time getting up that it's hard to like, particularly the morning stuff. So those two things, I think, are the bigger factors.
100%. And then sometimes I think sleep can be just as detrimental, I don't want to say equivalent to drugs and alcohol, but it can be destructive to your life in the sense of you don't have a normal sleep schedule or you're not getting up and sort of functioning the way you need to function. And the way most of our family deals with like depression or being overwhelmed is sleep. Like you can kind of shut down and you want to go now as an adult, you can go like, the extra 15 or 10 minutes that I'm hitting the snooze button or not getting out of bed, it's like not worth it. Like, get up and just go. Like,
I'm such a snooze abuser. Not as much now, obviously, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I've learned my lessons on being late and snoozing, and I've reset my mental place about it. I'm gonna still run late. I can't be bothered by that. That's my nature. I'm DNA genetically inclined that way. But what I can do to get ahead of it on things I know, like work or like getting up and getting going for the day, is back time it. I put an extra half an hour in the entire cycle. And I've also I'm not saying I've tricked myself with like setting your clocks differently, but I'm too used to a snooze. So now I set 5 alarms that are staggered and different minutes apart. So it's interruptive in the morning for about 45 minutes. I'm like, I don't want to get up yet. I know there's like 2 more alarms. When's that one going
my
off?
God.
Oh, that one went off. Oh, and what is that notification? So by like the third one, I am actually kicked out of bed. It's someone coming in and bothering you a couple times. But by the fourth one, I'm like, I'm up. What? Shut up. Everyone's asleep. Shh.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say sleeping with somebody, it makes it, you can't do that.
Yeah,
I
it's not cool.
Most of the time, Eric, who is the opposite of me, he'll go to bed early, he'll get up early, he's more than on time, he's like ridiculously early for things.
yeah, he's like sat out in front of the house.
Yeah,
like, I'm 20 minutes early.
Yeah, I don't know if it's overestimates or underestimates, but it's like, it always is like, oh, I have to go here. I'm leaving so much time to get there, and then has to sit in the parking lot for a half an hour.
Yeah, the 3 of us sisters.
But he would like rather do that than he would never chance being late, even by 2 minutes. That's
the
unacceptable.
3 of us, Virginia, who we spoke about before, both her and her husband run on time. Whereas Rosemary, you and I, we have the tendency to run late, but we married guys that absolutely do not, and it drives them crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that was very funny when Kirk was in and he said, yeah, I had a friend, I forget who it was, but was like, really sat me down. Maybe it was a work thing.
It was work
It's like,
thing.
let's really talk about how you can not be late. Just don't be late. And that changed his whole...
Be on time.
Be on time.
Be
Like,
on
what?
time. Well, listen, I worked for someone for years that her mantra was 5 minutes early is on time.
Yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
are on
that's-
time in her book, you're late. So that
be there, be ready before
right.
it's time.
So
Yeah.
I will say for work that dramatically changed. And then also when I was like doing my theater group and acting and not wanting to have a big responsibility job, I shifted and worked at this coffee shop, Aroma, that still exists on Tahunga in Studio City.
Such a great coffee place.
And also, it's very industry buzzy, people coming in and out. So it was very fun to work at. It was almost my like summer kid job again as an adult. Like it was like no real responsibility, super fun. I became a barista, but I'm a manager and all this and that. But the owner, Mark Gunsky, it's like he was the same way. Like you had to be on time. And shockingly, let's put her in charge of the morning crew,
Yeah. Ooh.
which then sets up the entire day for, and hi, it's a coffee shop, so 6 a.m. And I said yes.
Oh, geez.
I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but Mark was working either mornings or nights at Fox then as an editor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lifetime ago. So it was sort of like no one's there anyways. I might as well get up. And I mean, I could never be late. So jobs have definitely, Mark's is now, I take advantage of when I can be late, but it's called the Mary Killmond factor, our mom. Somehow or another, it still sort of works out, even though it stresses him out incredibly bad. Mark, like, we're running late, we're going to miss it. And somehow or another, something happens on the other end that we make it in time or is delayed and we didn't miss the big thing. And he'll look at me and go, damn, Mary Killmond. Like, he'll do it all the time now. But I try not, you get older and you're like, God, I don't even want the stress in my life. And then, here's the deal, which one day, we want to be aunts again. So no pressure, Eddie and John. But no one really tells you when you have a kid the scholastic years that you are responsible for getting them out the door and ready for school. That is one of those things like people don't really tell you. So I'm telling you, listeners, I don't know if you want to think about it. It's you're done with school. But then when your kid starts to go to school, you are responsible for getting them on time to school in a functioning manner. And really, I realized in order for my kid to like be set up for success, he couldn't like we were so much late for school.
Right. And all the stress and discombobulation.
You just start your
of
day
that,
like
yeah.
completely anxiety. Now, did mom drive you to school? Like, because she never drove us to school at a certain point. So how'd you get to school, John?
Yeah, she drove me to school for most of the time. I'm sure there was, some other situation at some other point. I don't remember.
We walked.
Yeah, when
You
I was
walked to school?
John couldn't ride a bike yet.
yeah.
Walked. God, okay.
And then later there was interspersed, some riding of my bike, some days of the week.
Because Dad drove
John,
you for a
'cause John
chunk
and
there.
I only crossed over his first and second year.
Right. Okay. Yeah, walking is a long way.
Well, it's also
actually.
very slow.
Well, it's the same distance, but yes, you're right. It's slower.
It's good practice for cross country.
Now, Dad drove you guys to school for a big chunk there, right? I remember him taking, for sure, Ed to Notre Dame.
Yeah, there was a couple if there was a drop off of him and me or a Rosemary, Virginia at Louisville, and then John and I drop off because there's like bikes getting piled into the car. There was a seat pulled out of the van at some point to accommodate that. There were definitely rides in the morning, but not rides in the afternoon.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like his heyday for me was like preschool.
Oh.
So, and then kindergarten, I was at the same school as Mom. So that was probably how that worked out.
What school was that?
OLV, when she was at OLV.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was, I was not with my St. Mel brethren during kindergarten, but then I joined them in first grade.
Right.
That didn't count. I was there the whole time.
And then I do recall that your preschool was very close to the bookstore. That's why he would.
Yeah, probably like 3/4 of the way. I wasn't like 2 blocks away, but
No. I
sort
think it
of
was
close.
farther, actually. Like he'd
Right.
go and drop you off and then double back a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can imagine
Tula?
both of them. Correct.
This is Tula's, yeah.
Although, strangely enough, that's the name of it. She is not a character in that school, as far as we remember. But yeah, I can remember where both those places are. I can't put them together. So there you go.
Interesting.
Well, Liz, you also did some rides to and from in that time, like towards John getting to
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a car.
preschool and
I drove I was not unlike other siblings who are unwilling to give rides to people.
Well, look, I also got a car really late. I was away in college by the time I had a car.
Same here.
Yeah, but I never lived at home again.
Oh,
Once I
that's
had a
true.
car, I
That's
never
true.
lived at home.
She was living her own life and didn't care about us anymore. It's
Well,
true.
that was true.
But yes, what Ed is totally right. Even in preschool, and then from there on, siblings, not Katherine, were helping out, picking me up. Not more picking me up, I feel like, than ever dropping off.
Oh,
which
for sure.
Could be right or wrong.
One of my girlfriend Heather McDonald's favorite stories is we had to go pick you up at Miss Tula's, and we were running late, so this ties into the topic. And we got there, and you were like the last kid standing there, and you were such a feisty toddler.
Was he wearing the cowboy boots?
Probably. And Mrs. Tula was standing there, and he goes,
Or the teacher, whoever, because we're now
we're
saying
just gonna say
that
it
wasn't
was Mrs. Tula's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Standing there, and we get out of the car. I'm like, "Hi, John," and he goes, "Stupid sister," and then got in the car. And Heather still thought it was so funny because there's like so much attitude coming from 2 feet tall, stupid sister. And she's like, sign him out. Da da da. There's gonna be a late fee. I'm like, well, too bad, Dad. You have to pay for it. And I probably took you to the store to go get a treat after that.
Yeah, you guys definitely did a lot of that, which was great. So I don't know why I was so mean. I mean, I definitely was very angry about a lot of things. Who knows why?
The injustice of being the eighth child.
I mean, my socks, the seam was in the wrong place. It was all very tough to deal with. But I thought you were going to tell the story more about the cowboy boots, but maybe Heather wasn't there for that one.
No, Heather wasn't there for that one. That was the infamous, I don't know where I was, but they were little black cowboy boots. Mm-hmm. Almost like ranchero style.
They were black?
They weren't at Marshall's right next door to the store.
Oh, no, I don't think they were. I think that
You get
might have gotten them on
full quality.
Olivera Street.
All right.
We're talking like,
They weren't brown? I thought they were brown.
Maybe it
Oh.
was during our flea market.
holy
days.
moly, they're
Black.
absolutely black.
Oh, yeah, they were black.
And they fit you perfectly. You'd wear them with your underwear, with your jeans, shorts, and you were obsessed with them. But they were abnormally
Pointy?
and hard.
Oh, yeah.
So they were weapons of mass destruction
Yeah,
for
you'd
your
kick people in the-
knees.
yeah, mhm.
So when I went to go pick you up one day from school, the teacher was standing there and you were in your socks and she was holding them and she goes, "He is not allowed to wear these here anymore." So I guess you kicked somebody and then they made you go stand out, take a time out by a tree, and you were kicking the tree. And then they're like, these are
I
never,
mean, that feisty is the word. You were
these are
feisty.
never coming back.
I believe the term that we used for them was shit kickers.
They certainly
They
were.
were.
Yeah.
I mean,
But they were so cute on you. I loved them.
Yeah,
I
they were
think
very
they got put on Susie, the infamous doll, for a while. I don't know,
Susie.
but I think they might still be somewhere in some cabinet. We have to look.
I do not think they are at Mom's house, but
Why would we've ever given them away? It's impossible.
I mean, look, this is something from 10 years ago, sure. Something from 30 years ago, the chances are
well, there's
slim.
there's mystery boxes.
And I don't
in the
even think
attic.
they were
You guys
leather.
are living in a dream world. We can go back to the topic whenever you like.
Yeah, I don't even think they were real leather. I don't even know what they were, but yes. So this weekend I went away with couples, and that's the thing. Flying can't be late, right? We were just
now more than ever.
Yeah,
you
we
gotta
were
be
talking about
ridiculously
how
early.
Huh. Oh, you can't be late. So how do we want to start that story at the top of the journey?
Well, I mean, late within reason. You can't miss you have to make it to the airport now basically an hour before your flight. You really do.
All right, again, living in a dream world.
What happened? I don't
Are you-
remember.
I'm
Because it
just-
all worked out. It was a Mary Killmond. So I'm like, what happened? I don't
We probably
remember.
left 40 minutes after we planned for the airport, but whatever.
Were you driving her to the airport? So you're very involved in the story.
Just that part. I'm
Just
just
that
saying.
part.
Because
if we're-
Uber
if-
is like a nightmare now. So
Oh, yeah,
thank
you can't do
John.
that.
Yeah.
If you're gonna start this last weekend trip, that's where it started for me.
I mean, I checked us in. I feel like it all worked out, John. It's only about 40 minutes, but yes. I've only missed probably, and one was not even my fault. Mark literally, he went to go park the car and went to the wrong terminal at Burbank.
Oops.
We have 2 terminals at the small airport called Burbank, and where we live, and he just picked the wrong one.
Has anyone ever been in the other terminal? I've never been in the other terminal.
I just came in on the
Nope.
other terminal
Wow.
this
Well,
weekend. It's very rare.
Well, because you did the full regional to regional airport. Yeah,
Right.
That might be all right. Go ahead.
So I don't know. So that I just sitting waiting for Mark to come and watching our flight take off, and I'm like, all right, so that missed a flight. And then
Jeez.
actually, one of the times I was traveling with Kendall Jenner, who I worked with, we just hit like horrific traffic going to the airport, and we missed our flight to Hawaii. And then we had to wait 45 minutes to an hour for a second, like another flight, because it was, they're going all the time. But then I had to sit and like coach. She got first class because we were going for Hawaii Five-0, the show that was filming there. She was doing a little cameo in it. So very nicely, sometimes when that happens, you get the perk of first class tickets. But because we missed that flight, she got the last first class seat in that.
In the rebook, and and that was the famous where I was like, oh well, then fine, I'll just sleep on the flight. And I'd bought one of those pillows, a neck pillow,
and I'm sitting in a row. Actually, it was semi-empty, so I almost could really kind of lie down. I was really excited.
It was semi-empty except for first class.
Yeah, and I go to tear off the tag, so it won't like be crinkling and making noise. And the whole thing goes and it explodes. And it's those little like styrofoam pellets.
No.
I didn't even know what was inside of it. And when I say like snow everywhere, I was like, and this is before the flight's taking off.
Oh my God.
And I am just like, this is just such a nightmare. So
it sounds like someone else on that was like, and they're going on a Disney vacation. Like, oh, it's snowing on this flight. It's magic.
Oh, I was like, sorry. There's probably still styrofoam in little crevices on that plane today. So yeah, flights, I'm not saying I don't push it getting to the airport or like just make it under the wire. But the days of when we used to drop mom off at the airport 10 minutes before her flight, and you'd watch as a kid her running through the terminal, you're like, hope she makes it. I mean, you could literally knock on a closed door of the gate and be like, let me in, and they let you in if the plane had not taken off. Now it is like,
once it's closed, forget it.
There is no getting on there. So, John, I don't remember really running late this last week, but I guess we did a little bit. But we made it with so much time. Mary Killmond. We actually had like a cocktail. We ate something. It was like, damn, we got a lot of time. So I'm not sure what you're saying, but
maybe it was delayed.
No, look, it's just this is the airport. Now we live in the you got to be 2 hours early because you got to get through security 1 hour beforehand, and then you got to give yourself an hour for security, which almost never works out that it takes that long. So yes, we were not there for the full 2 hour window, but you had more than enough time. All right, so get into the weekend.
Yeah, so staying with couples at a house, and yet our host family, the host couple, didn't really lay out like an agenda. You just knew we were doing certain things. But they booked the Airbnb, but she sort of has a theory of that even though it's an Airbnb, she does not want to cook and clean there. So there's not really food for any meals. So the first night we arrived, it's my girlfriend Heather, she had a stand-up gig, and we were not going to her first set, we were going to her second. So that worked out fine, just Uber to it was great. But the next day we're going on a full wine tasting tour, and the first winery we were going to was 5 minutes away, and the car we'd arranged, because you can't really drive, I mean you need someone to drive you around for the day, was picking us up at maybe 11:45, 11:50 for the 12 o'clock wine tasting. So we woke up relatively early-ish for being away on vacation. It was like 8:45 in the morning. Another couple was up walking around, and we said, oh, have you seen Heather and Peter? No, maybe they're still asleep. I go, but somebody made coffee. Maybe they made coffee and went back to bed. I don't know. So I text Heather basically, I didn't want to go knock on her door in case they were asleep. So I text her and say, hey, if you're up, we're all thinking we should go get something to eat because we're going to go wine tasting. And there's really no food in the house. So this is going to be a disaster otherwise. We need food. And there's no response for like 40 minutes. And by this time, they've had their cup of coffee. I've had tea, kind of gotten casually dressed. I'm like, all right. And then she texts us back like, oh, we've been up. We walked into town and we got something to eat, which, is a little classic Heather. But at the same time, you're like, wait, you're sort of hosting her. But like, maybe you could have texted and said like, we're leaving. Do you want us to bring back anything? I said, oh, can you bring back? She's like, oh, no, we're already walking back. It's like, oh, my God. Like, we all need to eat something. So we basically cross each other while they're coming back to the house. And she goes, okay, don't forget we need to leave by like 11:50. I'm like, okay. So we go into town and we order sandwiches at this great bakery, and we were bringing them back. Even I think we brought back sandwiches for, it was a comic-filled household that weekend. So a lot of laughs, So we get back and we're eating and we're talking. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get ready. And it was like, okay, Heather had texted me like, the car's here, we're going to leave. So I'm like, okay. So I grab my shoes and I come out. Mark goes, they left us.
Oh my God.
I go, what? And he goes, Heather didn't want to be late. I'm like, it's 5 minutes away. It's 11:55. Like, we would not have been late. Mm-hmm. And he goes, nope. And I go, okay, so how are we getting there? I said, are we Ubering? Like, all right, we're literally going to be pulling up 2 minutes behind them. I mean, it's my fault, but if we'd gotten up all early together and gotten that sandwich together, whatever. But I'm taking full accountability. So I'm like, son of a bitch. So then she texted me. She goes, I'm going to send the driver back because we have the van the whole day so he can just come back and get you. So when we get in the van, he's like, oh, yeah, she did not want to be late. And she said, oh, my girlfriend runs late and it's fine, but we're just going to leave her. And you can go back and get her. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I couldn't be mad at her. I wasn't mad. It was just more like, wow, damn it, Marco's not Mary Killmond this time. But we literally get to the winery 15 minutes later. And because they went on some like tour of a lab or something, we all basically sat down at the same time for the wine tasting. And Mark's like, so they were like, you didn't miss anything. I'm like, okay. But it definitely was. Heather goes, well, my sister Shannon and Liz both pretty much always run 15 minutes late. So now quite often I will start telling them a different time. And that I really think is a smart move by people that love me in my life. Like, if you really want to leave by 7:45, lie and say 7:20. It's almost better that I don't know.
Does it actually work? I feel like Mark...
Sometimes, yes.
I feel like Mark tries to do that to you. Well, there's two things that will happen. So let's just say it's, you're supposed to leave at 6, and he'll tell you 5:30 or something. Two things will happen, I feel like. One, either you'll eventually weasel it out of him what time you need to leave, and then push it past that. Or you'll just push it past anytime anyway. You're like, 5:30? Whatever, I'm ready at 6:15. It's like, well, I wanted to leave at 6, but here we go.
Yeah. Okay, that's an accurate assessment. But now, because I'm realizing the anxiety it causes him and the example it's setting for my son, I got to get better at it. But last night I went to our friend's house.
Wouldn't that be awesome if like 40 years ago Mary Killmond had that thought? The example that I'm setting for my family.
Oh, God. She still will run late. I mean, listen, childhood mass was such an anxiety inducer. And especially if she's going to be like what's in the Catholic faith, something called a Eucharistic minister, or she's going to do a reading. So she's like part of the mass. So like you kind of need to be there on time. And when we didn't drive, it was so anxiety inducing. And yet we were made that we had to go to mass. So you're like, oh my gosh, let's just get there, and you're walking in late. And
I think that was one of the best parts about being an altar boy, is that I'm not going on your schedule. I'm going when I am scheduled. And it's Saturday night at 5:30 and I'm done. And I rode my bike. That's it, y'all.
Boom.
Enjoy your morning.
Independence.
Well, now our holidays, when a large group of us will maybe meet at a holiday mass, it can be anywhere from 8 to 15 of us, if not more. So you're going to take up a pew plus.
And there's a solid 25-minute arrival window.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, it's also very tough because it seems semi-impossible to save enough room. And then also, no matter what, someone will also be like, oh, you have room? I'm going to go in a different row. And I'm like, what
I don't know what that is. Yes, because then you'll be saving the whole row, which is like you've laid down purses, jackets, you're like waving off people. It's very stress induced. And Virginia and Brian and her girls are always there on time trying to save it. But then Brian 2 or 3 times is so polite. If somebody like walks in like, oh, I'd like to take part of your pew, Brian does not stop them. So then we'll have some random strangers within the midst of our crazy family sitting with us. So that has happened quite a few times. So then exactly what John says, then family members will start rolling in, and it drives Mark crazy that if I'm like, no, come sit with us, where I am cramming in Mark into what would be, it's like a third of the space that he really should be taking up. So he's probably going to have to be standing, he has to stand like,
a little sideways
to even fit in the seat. He's like, this is the worst.
Well, just recently, I think it was for the anniversary of Dad passing or something, there was like an evening mass that was dedicated to him. And I don't go to mass typically, but I will go for special occasions or things like this. And I showed up and I was, I think, less than 5 minutes late. The priest is up on the altar, and evening masses are quite fast. Like they don't do like a long version. So it's like a weekday evening or something. And so I'm like, I get there and I'm like, how far along is this? Did this start? I think it was 5:30, and I was like, did it start at 5? Like, did I really miscalculate this? Because I'm looking and I can't see any other family members. So I just go and sit in the back row. I'm like, I'll just wait here until I can see where everybody is. And 5 minutes goes by, a little bit more than that. And then Mom and John come in. I'm like, holy crap. I was the first one here? What?
Yeah, you're getting this wrong. I feel like you were like 1 to 2 minutes late.
What do you mean?
I feel like you were not that late. You didn't arrive that late because I think we were about 5 minutes late.
But I'm just saying it felt like because the Mass was already starting. And that I was like, even though, because the beginning of the Mass is the procession where people walk in.
I know,
or
but you
come
just
in-
made
yeah.
us 15 minutes late. So I'm saying we're actually, I think, only about 5 minutes late. But
Yeah, but, well-
everybody was late. We were the second party to arrive. Go
So
ahead.
feeling like you're sitting there alone, maybe it felt longer. So I'm sitting there alone in the back row for however many minutes. And then John and Mom come in. That was the realization of like, oh, no one is here. Or, you know what?
For the Mass being said for our Father.
Yeah. So they came and sat with me in the back row, which it was a sparsely attended Mass. There was plenty of other places to sit. I just had...
This is the era of social distancing. It's fine.
It's so funny. You were so focused on this. We don't care that we were in the back row.
you don't-
Rosie cares. Rosie cares about everything. She
So
needs to
then,
relax.
right. So Rosie, did Kirk come with her?
No.
I can't remember. Okay. So Rosie comes and I can't remember if she came in from the back or from the front and had to like come all the way back.
Somehow, wasn't she from the front? She was like, "It wasn't you, Liz, or was it you?" She was walking in with someone, and you could almost see her saying to that person, "Well, Mass is going." She's walking on the side. Why are they in the back? And it's like, you haven't even got here yet. Okay.
Well, listen, she'll move wherever the hostess is going to take her to the table. There is more than 90% chance she's going to go, not that table. So,
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell are they sitting in the last row for?
Definitely
might
Liz
have-
did that when she came in because they also came, for sure, you and Mark came in from the front. So you had to walk all the way to the back
I'm
and
like,
you're like,
where
what are you doing?
are they? Oh my God, what's happening?
You know, why you would come in from the front when it's already going is also
Boom, I have no shame on her.
a bad idea, but
It
sure.
was, it was very funny. But Rosemary specifically was like, why are we in the back row? I'm like, because I was the only one here. And I didn't know I was the only one here. And
I was
it
scoping
just-
the situation out. I was first, though, so there was nothing to scope.
Yeah. I mean, I was still a skosh late, but I was closer to on time than anybody else, apparently.
But what was funny was not even half the church was filled. So we practically sat in the front. So when they say, and this Mass is dedicated to the memory of Francis Xavier Killmond, it's like from the back row, we're like, yeah, that's us. Yeah, thank you.
I literally the last row. I mean, there were plenty of other places. I just was like convinced that
I guarantee if I
wasn't
brought it
seeing-
up now to Rosemary, I could get her all enraged again.
Oh, really?
Like, why did we do that?
I thought you were going to say, she didn't care.
But even the
moved on.
holidays this
No.
year, the fogs came in. I think, you have to be early, not even on time to get seats during the holidays. But they came in, and the Mass didn't start yet, and there was room in our pew, but almost like you get to where like, oh no, you don't want to bother anybody. So they sat like 2 rows behind us, even though there was room. I'm like, what? I mean, like I said, holding the people at
it's
bay
hard,
to
yeah.
try to get the seats for our family has become a big old deal where it's like, oh my gosh, so it's kind of stressful during the holidays,
I would say for me, the being on time, Eric has been a very good influence, and he doesn't seem to get upset or stressed about it. He's just like, he runs so early and he knows that I'm going to run late. So I've given myself like collapsible things. It's like, and I also, when I know that I'm going to be on time and he is like looking at me and I'm not even dressed, I stop that. I'm like, I get dressed so he knows like, oh, she's going to be ready. Because he will be like, we have to leave in 30 minutes. And you're like,
30 minutes?
Yeah. Oh, he's, yeah.
You're right. I have to sew my socks first.
I mean-
It's gonna take a minute.
I mean, like, yeah, I'm like, I just have to put my pants on and like, or whatever it is, it's like, but the thing that ends up not happening is like, oh, was I going to do fancy makeup? Yes. Am I now? No, because he wants to be out the door at a certain time. And he just, he's pretty chill about it, but he is like ready way too early and
Right.
just sitting there on his phone. Like, I'm ready.
Yeah, I think if I were to compare these two situations, Eric, I think somehow moves the train along and you've adjusted to that. Without putting a lot of pressure on you, you react to what he's trying to do. Whereas Mark and Liz, Mark is he's ready, he's
Sitting
he
there,
has
yeah.
communicated, he's asking. That does not quite motivate Liz, seemingly.
No, and he is kind of resigned himself, but then I'll be like, I'm almost ready to go. It's so asinine of me, but it'll drive me crazy when I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. And then they start closing windows and locking that. So I'm like, I said I was ready to go. Like to him and Ethan, like, come on, guys. They don't take me seriously when I say I'm ready to go.
Seriously.
You do there's like a 3-prong approach you have. You'll do the like, I'm walking back to the bathroom, like, put your shoes on. And it's like, okay, you are not ready. No one needs to have their shoes on. And then you'll do the like, oh, I'm walking into the kitchen to make yourself an ice water or go through your
Iced
purse
tea,
or
yeah.
whatever. And you're like, are you ready? And it's like, you're still not ready. And then, so it's tough because now you're saying in the third actual situation where you're ready to walk out the door
Yes.
and they're not. Sure, that
The hypocrisy, it's fabulous.
But the problem is it's hard to tell between those 3 situations of like, well, the other 2, we didn't need to react because you're being outrageous. But then, okay, the third time, oops, you were actually ready. We didn't realize.
And then still, it sounds like there's only like 30 seconds of stuff that they have to do before they are ready.
Yeah. Well, and going back to, you said the pile on, and that's something we inherited from our mother, which I really try not to do, which is like, we're going to a birthday party. You're trying to like wrap the gift as you walk out the door and write the card. I still will occasionally do that, but if I'm trying to be organized and trying to be on top of it, I just recently had my girlfriend's wedding, and I mean, like it was 2 days before I wrapped it. I wrapped the gifts and made the card because I was like, I cannot be late for any part of this. I need to be on time, add no stress to this situation.
Well, that's an interesting example you picked, considering you were the reverend, so you would have to be there early.
Rev Liz, but
early no matter what.
yeah, John, in our DNA, I don't know that really would matter.
No,
so.
I hear you. But I feel like, but that's not the pylon. The pylon is not things that are actually related to what you are doing.
Yeah, not the essential things.
It's the like,
all the...
oh, I'm doing a load of laundry. Oh, I'm going to do this work email for a little bit. Oh, I'm going to look at Facebook or Instagram for those are the things that like, and then I've ate 40 minutes that I needed to use.
It's the, I think I'll just real quick load the dishwasher and help Adam with something. And then, it's not the essential things that you have to do to go. It's the other things that you're just trying to get out of the way.
Right, because the present, that's the bad example of, this is a thing I needed to do before we leave, but now I've not left enough time to do that and be there on time.
Yeah, because you can saboteur yourself where, that's why now I pretty much will say no to appetizers.
Oh, yeah. You've talked about this. This is a good idea.
I
I
mean,
don't like doing appetizers either.
It's been a whole year. I think it's been 3 to 4 parties. You've been doing a great job.
True. But this goes back, years and years and years because I make a really good charcuterie cheese platter.
Yeah, you do.
And so there's been requests, but I'm like, I'm not as bad as where I'm arriving, like, and the meal's already started. But it's like, if you're appetizers, you need to be 5 minutes early or on time if someone's relying on you for appetizers. So it's just, so now I know thyself and I opt for dessert, quite honestly, or beverages if I'm going to someone else's house.
Yeah. Well, it's true that different things require different levels of punctuality. And this idea that like you can let it slide on some things for sure. I mean, we're not, even Eric, he's like for family, whatever they are, family parties or events or whatever. He's like, what time does this thing start? And he's like, yeah, we're not showing up that time because we'll be the only ones there.
Yeah, it's a weird, for the family events, it's now the announced time.
Yes.
Now, this is probably not true for every single one of them, but the announced time is not actually the time you're supposed to arrive, nor is everyone expected to be
What the hell
there.
are they doing here at 4 o'clock? Well, your invitation said 4 o'clock. Yeah, but what are they doing here?
Yeah. So look, it's
No.
there's usually like one set of people, whether it's Katherine or Jenny and her family, will show up,
Closest
at
to
that
on
time
time,
or
yeah.
5 minutes after, and that's still like, and no one else is there for a good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had a couple girlfriends who are notorious for when I'm, would throw a party, they would be 5-10 minutes early and want to help, which is almost like now I've got to manage you and figure out what I can have you help me with, which will require more work. Like go into my hostess closet and get this out. Which one do you mean? Where? Huh? You're like, oh my God, it'd be quicker if I did it myself. But you're here to help.
My party planning staff was just me. So now that there's 300% more people to control, this is out of control.
Yeah. Cut up the limes, whatever, it's fine. But I like to throw parties, and usually now I try to do a lot of prep before. But Thanksgiving, going back to what you said, we usually say appetizers starting around 4. And I feel like Eric has caught on. Although the appetizers and things are ready to go at 4, most people are not rolling into our house until almost 4:30.
Yeah, we live like probably 10, 15 minutes away from you, and we will usually leave at the call time or close to the call time, that's pretty good. I mean, like for us to, it's like wrangle the four of us out the door. And I feel like, Adam is going to be on time because we coordinate him. So, and Eric is ready early, and Sarah is very low maintenance and like, okay, what time are we really leaving? I will be ready, whatever that means.
I think in recent time, the most mortifying thing I still look back on and cringe that I was late to was Ethan's first Holy Communion.
Oh.
Because I was getting the party ready at home, getting him ready, because everybody's going to come back and have a big brunch at our house. And during that period, I don't think they do it now, you as parents walk down the aisle with your kid.
Oh,
and he's in a cute
right.
little suit. And I think John hung back with me to do the last minute things at our house. And I was like, okay, let's go. And he dropped me off. And it's like, it was so bizarre. I was starting at like 9:30. And it was like, I guess they started to process in before. So they were actually seated at 9:30 to start at 9:30. I thought they were starting the thing at 9:30. So at like 9:28, I'm like, where are they all? And I'm running. And Mark has already walked up the aisle with Ethan solo.
Oh, geez.
And they, of course, are videotaping it. So I can't bring myself to even watch it because I'm so mortified. Because I think they probably did a close-up long lens on me in the back looking like, what the hell? And our girlfriend Lainey was there and she was so funny. She's like, it looked like a single father. Where the hell were you? What was wrong with you? Why were you late? Lainey laid into me. And I'm like, I thought it was starting at 9:30. She goes, I almost walked down the aisle with Mark just so he didn't look like,
alone.
He didn't have a mother. I'm like, oh my God, I was mortified. So I still kind of go like, ugh. So big events, I really try not to push it anymore. I mean, listen, my rehearsal dinner for the wedding was so notoriously bad where mom, it's like a rehearsal. You're at the venue and she's bringing my younger siblings who are going to be different roles in the wedding. So some bridesmaids. I don't know if Eddie or John participated anyway, but maybe you were there or not. I can't remember. But mom was like 45 minutes to an hour late. And she's walking me down the aisle.
Oh, geez.
So that was my karmic justice. The first communion. Oh, my God.
Well, and you're talking about the rehearsal at the church that's 5 minutes away from our house?
No. The one
I was going to say, all right, yeah, because the one that was in the city, fine. That was like a good 30 to 40 minutes away. So, hey, we left on time to be late.
You know where we were always late to? Was the family therapy that we did, the grief therapy with Jeannie Geidel, our family therapist.
I mean, that was in the middle of the freaking valley.
Oh, it's like Panorama City.
Yeah, you're going to be late to that
At
no
like
matter
at
what.
4 o'clock on like a Tuesday, but we would all, mom would meet most of us there. So I'd be driving younger siblings and we would run late. God love Jeannie. She would just sit and wait for us and, go through then the hour of torture of therapy with all of us or plus. And then afterwards, we'd be like, oh, we all need McDonald's.
I don't know what you're talking about. It was great.
Well, yeah.
Didn't you just play pool or ping pong or something? Oh.
That's therapy.
No, we're gonna have to talk about family therapy and our therapy in another session. But yeah, so I mean, now as we get older, I'm trying to make a better impression for Ethan because I see it. He's inherited it from me. He wants to hit snooze. He's okay with running late. He kind of has the Mary Killmond trait where it works out too.
Which is not good. That just reinforces that it's okay. Yeah.
God, it's the best. Ding dong, the doorbell will ring. His friends are at the door. It's like, Ethan, go. What are you doing? Now we have to go to the door because you cannot get to the door right now.
I got to work on it for the next generation, to make sure he doesn't inherit it in a bad way. Because Mark, like I said, does not really run late to anything. If he had his druthers, we wouldn't at all. So even casual or not, whatever the circumstances are.
Right.
So, I'm working on it. But work-wise, I really try to, life is just, you get it. That's almost selfish to be late for things like that. You got to show up. Like as Kirk said, be on time.
Be on time.
on time.
What a revelation. Be on time.
Some Oprah thinks that it's really an ego thing that you think you're better than the circumstance. Some expert came on that like you can be late. Like it's okay for you to be late. Well, why? It's not okay for anybody to be late. And you don't want to cause stress in someone else's life because you're running late. So
Get it together.
get it together. But
There's just so many things to do.
Yeah.
No, Eric's been a really good influence on me, even though what he does being early is insane. I mean, he'll take Sarah to doctor's appointments and they will have to sit in the car for half an hour because he'll be like, we need to give ourselves an hour to get there. And you're like, you don't, but okay. I mean, unforeseen circumstances, he's never ever been like, I got stuck in traffic. No, he never has been late because if there's traffic, he has given himself more than enough time.
Now, we live in LA, and to quote one of my good friends, Jeff Lewis, on his show Flipping Out, there's always traffic in LA. I mean, so there's always traffic in LA, no matter where you're traveling. And these apps, Waze and even Google Maps,
very good at calculating.
They're pretty much to the nose now. And I still believe Waze has cut out all their weird shortcuts to save you 2 or 3 minutes here or there. But yeah, it's pretty accurate and you can get around the city, but it can take an hour to get almost anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Things have changed since the Clueless days when everything in Los Angeles is 20 minutes away.
No.
Yeah, no.
No. That's what we need, like more mass transit, I mean,
yeah, that would
really
be good.
get around the city quicker, but we're too sprawled out. It's not going to happen. And we're in our cars and just no. And my car clock that's 5 minutes early that still works. We were never late for school. And I don't know if it was like COVID, if it was teenage hormones or what. Just getting Ethan out the door and motivated to go to school and they're on time was like torture. And then he did not seem to care that he was late, which bugged the crap out of me because I don't want that. So, it was just very nerve-wracking. And his hustle, there is no hustle. There is no fast speed, right?
Look, it's tough. I'm not seeing that scenario where, you're actually, to be clear. So like, you're ready and you're trying to force him to get going. So I haven't been there for that. So I'm always seeing when you say this about no hustle, like, later in the day in the afternoon to a, dinner or whatever. So it's like, what's the deal? He's walking. There's also no rush at this point. But you're not wrong,
There's
sure.
no fire under his ass, that's for sure, that one. It's like, no. This next year will be interesting because I'm not exactly sure how we're getting him to school because Luke, his cousin, might drive him, but Luke sort of has the same genes, so I don't necessarily want him to be late. So we'll see what happens. It will be it'll be an interesting trait because also to get him up, it's like Little Lord Fauntleroy. Mark gets him up and he somehow is very independent and gets himself like going. Where I am like laying out his clothes, packing his lunch, his book bag, everything, and it's still like, get out the door. Crazy.
We're all working on it, and hopefully for the next generation, it'll be less of an issue.
I think it's in our DNA. There's nothing you can do about it. Running late. Mary Killmond. That's your fault. So.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Family DynamiKs. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on all of our social media at Family DynamiKs with a K. And we have a Patreon. You can find us on Patreon and become a patron, an honorary family member, and listen to longer versions of stories and other things that didn't get onto the podcast because we thought we might not have been appropriate for all audiences.
Or we need the person here to witness the story and tell us their side.
Thank you for listening to
Family
DynamiKs.